Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton. Thank you so much for joining me here today. And I've got one more list before the curtain comes down on spooky season 2023. Before we step out of that October country for another year and move on to the other holiday seasons, I wanted to get one more list out there. Now, we're so spoiled. We're so spoiled as fantasy and sci-fi readers. If we want a longer form story, if we want to stay with a character for book after book after book, or go on an author's journey that spans an epic amount of pages and different characters and pathways, and we can do that in fantasy and sci-fi. If you want a trilogy, if you want 6 books, if you want 12 books, if you want 30 books, the series are out there. They're not hard to find, right? But the horror genre, people don't necessarily think about series when they think about horror genre. So I put together a list of what I think are some great series if you want to spend a little bit more time in a darker place. And I'm going to have to break some booktube rules. I could not organize these from 1 to 10. I tried several times. I went through several different pieces of paper. I went through several different drinks by my side. I went through several different configurations and I could not crack the code of what I really thought went 1 through 10 because I love all of these series so much. I've been spending so much time with them. I couldn't set them up from 1 to 10. So I'm just going to throw them out there as 10 great suggestions, one after another, of long form series in the horror genre that I think are very, very worth your time in checking out. So let's get started and roll right around. Let's start with number 1. I like to call this the Jonathan Marbury universe. Everything that this author writes happens in one shared world, where the best place to start is with the Pine Deep trilogy. This is the first thing he wrote. This is a story that takes place in the most haunted place in America. It's got everything you can imagine, love letter to the horror genre, and it's a great fun trilogy. The first book in that trilogy is Ghost Road Blues. So if you start there and you like that trilogy, and there's a reason why he won the Stoker Award for first novel on that one. It is a great read. If you like that, you can go into the Joe Ledger series. Think like a SEAL team or a special group of operators taking care of the things that are spooky that go bump in the night, right? So if you enjoy that longer series, I think there's 13 books in that. From there, he goes back to the Pine Deep characters. They pop up. Well, these characters pop up in different books, in each other's books. And after that, you've got the fall of the world in his zombie apocalypse series, the Fall of Night series. From there, you've got his YA series of people dealing in that fallen civilization after the zombie uprising. And I think there's 6 or 7 of those books. That's a YA series, a Rotten Ruin series, but don't let the Y and the A scare you off. It is great, great zombie fiction. It's a lot of fun. It's a great read. So as you can see, like, this is a sprawling tale. Just from one to the next, you can go from series to series to series and see these characters pop up and take a nice long trip with this writer in the Jonathan Marbury universe. Now, number 2. Say you would like a feast for your eyes, right? As well as your brain. Let's go with a comic series. This is a fabulous series. This is Lock and Key, written by Joe Hill with the art by Gabriel Rodriguez. Beautiful art, clear line work, conveys emotion, so cinematic on the page. You will absolutely live this story. Don't let the Netflix series scare you away here. This is a great series. That's just the tip of the iceberg on this story. Think about a family that has lost their patriarch. Their father has been ripped away from them. They have to return to the small town where that father grew up because financially they're kind of thrown into disarray after this tragedy. And they start to discover the mysteries of this family house that has been in this family for generation after generation after generation, with the finding of these keys in Key House, and each one does a truly marvelous thing. The imagination behind this is exceptional, and it's a love letter to all things horror. Just to show you how much of that is true, the first book in this series is called Welcome to Lovecraft, because the town that Key House is in is called Lovecraft. So you can tell he's tipping a cap to so many things that came before him for the grist for his mill that he's mining here. What a great read. I think there's 5 or 6 collected works in this series. Check it out. It is so worth your time. I know a lot of people don't think about comics when they go to pick up their next book necessarily, but this one is so worth your time if you want a longer story in the horror genre. Let's go to number 3. Number 3, I think if you want to spend some time in a truly weird and bizarre place, you can't go wrong with H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos stories. Here's a writer that created a universe and a mythology and a genre of writing cosmic horror, and then open it up to his peers and other writers. Take these ideas, take these themes, take these characters, this mythology, and run crazy with it. Do what you want. I think it would be awesome if this lives beyond my imagination, and that is going on still today. So many people mining that cosmic horror themes and ideas and characters that he created. Why not go back to the source if you want something longer, right? So I would say a great place to start is Call of Cthulhu. If you kind of dig that, if you dig the vibe on that, go to Shadow over Innsmouth. Look up any wiki, any reading order. There's tons of it going from that all the way to current of people operating in that universe. You can read until the cows come home and not run out of stuff. So now coming in at number 4, I'm going to have to say the Necroscope series by Brian Lumley. There's 18 books in this series. It all starts, book 1 is Necroscope. And think about this average guy who starts to realize he's hearing voices. He can hear voices, and it's worse when he's closer to graveyards. He can hear the dead, and he starts to learn that the dead majority of us, they just lie in repose and they work on things that they loved in life. They just keep working on them after death. So if you're a mathematician, you keep turning those numbers over in your undead mind, right? So through talking to mathematicians, he learns how to open Mobius doors and step from one part of the world to the other end of the globe in a blink of an eye. He can open this Mobius door and see the neon glowing blue threads of every living thing shooting off into infinity, and intermixed with those blue threads are red threads of vampirism. He is recruited by British E-Branch, which is like James Bond, but for horror scenarios. And there's a long series of books of him stamping out vampirism and everything else that goes bump in the night. This is such a fun series. It goes from this world to other worlds through doorways, and it just keeps going. You will want to pick up one book after the other. The first book, again, Necroscope, give it a try. Coming in at number 5, I'm going to go with what's called The Secret History of the World by F. Paul Wilson. F. Paul Wilson is a great writer. This all starts in a book called The Keep. Think about a medieval keep, and there's a group of Nazis. They're looking for esoteric, magical things that can add to their arsenal. And they start to find out and learn that this keep was not built to keep invaders or marauders out. This keep was built to keep whatever is inside from getting outside. And unfortunately, it does get out. This is the first book in what is called the Adversary Cycle, which goes, I believe, for 6 books. The second book in the Adversary Cycle is called The Tomb. That is the first book of the Repairman Jack series. But don't make that leap too quickly. Stick with the Adversary Cycle. Even though you've read the first book of the Repairman Jack series, stick with the Adversary Cycle, go through that series, then move on to Repairman Jack. Then look up Google and Wiki reading orders for Secret History of the World, F. Paul Wilson. You will be entertained for a long time. I think this is at least 24 books in this series that you can just go from one to the other. The Repairman Jack series, I've talked about it on other videos. It's like the last knight errant standing between humanity and that darkness that is encroaching and creeping into the world. So fun, so worth a check out if you want a longer series in the horror genre. Now, let's move on to number 6. Number 6, I know some of you are going to say, man, that's not horror, but hang with me. Number 6, I'm going to go with the Bill Hodges trilogy by Stephen King. Got to have some Stephen King on this list. Yes, the first book, Mr. Mercedes, which is where you would want to start. Not necessarily horror, more of a crime fiction, more of a detective story about detective past his prime. But if you stick with this trilogy, Stephen King can't help himself. Some supernatural elements, some horror elements are going to come creeping in, and it is a great thrill ride. This entire trilogy is way up there for me. It is so fun. It is genre blending. You cannot go wrong with it. If you just want something, maybe it's not 24 books, but maybe just a trilogy, check this one out. The Bill Hodges trilogy, the first book being Mr. Mercedes. Number 7. Guys, I just read book 1 of this for spooky season this year, and I cannot say loud enough, you should check this out if you haven't. I'm talking about the Indian Lake trilogy. The first book, My Heart is a Chainsaw, and this is by Stephen Graham Jones. If you love slasher flicks, if you came up when I came up and you went from one slasher flick to the next, every weekend there was another one, you want a little in your horror, you want some Halloween, some Friday the 13th, some My Bloody Valentine, fill in the blank, right? Freddy, they're all in there. This is a love letter to all of it. An amazing female protagonist in Jade. Loves slasher films, lives by slasher films, is consumed by slasher films, and you start to find out that through reading this first book, the depths of Jade and what she's trying to hide from herself is the past trauma she's been through the love of these slasher films, and then she finds herself living through and being in the middle of a slasher scenario. What an amazing Valentine to all things slasher. You've got to check it out. I know the second book is Don't Fear the Reaper. That is coming up on my TBR so fast after reading this first book. I cannot say loud enough, give this one a try. Coming in at number 8. This is something, if you want a little bit something in shorter bites maybe, but this is a series, it's a trilogy. 3 books, 3 anthologies of short stories. I'm talking about the Books of Blood by Clive Barker. A lot of times I will use a short story as a palate cleanser between longer reads. These are not palate cleansers. These are short stories that you will have to put that book down and think for a second and ruminate for a second. What he did by expanding the genre. There was a reason Stephen King read these collections back in the day and said, I've seen the future of horror, and its name is Clive Barker. He took not only fear and anxiety, those primal emotions, and put him into his work. He mined the depths of our souls like greed and lust and desires that we don't want to necessarily admit that we have, but they're very much a part of us. It's all in these stories. Every one of these stories, every one of these short stories is an absolute banger that hits it out of the park. If you have not gone back and read these collections, 1, 2, and 3, The Books of Blood by Clive Barker, what a dark delicacy of a sampler platter of dark samplers of little chocolate bites that are so amazing. Check it out. Now, coming in at number 9, this is one of my all-time favorites. This is a trilogy. It is the Passage trilogy by Justin Cronin. The first book is called The Passage. This is like a apocalyptic story, but it's not zombies this time. It's more vampiric. But the character work is so deep. It's so real. It's so steeped in reality. It will suck you in. And it's not just an apocalyptic story. As it moves on, you're going to go into our faith and our metaphysical beliefs and hopes and wants. And then the second book moves like a quest story, like a fantasy epic. And then the third just wraps it up in such an amazing way with such an unbelievable bow on the whole thing. It's just heartbreaking. Try this trilogy out if you have not. Justin Cronin, The Passage trilogy. The first book is The Passage. Wonderful. And for number 10. Now, this one, you guys, you're going to have to get a little physical. You're going to have to shoulder your way through the people that are trying to block you. If you're in the horror section, you're going to have to shoulder your way past the shelf Nazis that want to separate stuff for marketing reasons, and you have to get yourself over to the literary shelves and stand in front of the M's and find David Mitchell. I call this like the David Mitchell universe. It's not all synced together, but this is at its core, at its heart, a horror story. And it all starts with The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet. Now, you're grab this book and you're going to say, this is not horror, John. What the heck are you talking about? Stick with it. Yes, yes, yes. It's historical. It's historical fiction. Yes, it's a love story. Yes, it's about embezzlement. all those things. But if you stick with it long enough, it's also about crazy monks and immortal blood cults and stealing women and sacrificing and the long-term fight of who will get immortality. From there, you go to Bone Clocks, which is horror from page 1 all the way through, and you get into more the metaphysical level of this ongoing possession fight of light versus dark for immortality. From there, go to the novella Slade House, a great time-bending haunted house story. From them, go to Utopia Avenue, and it follows the founding and the career of a rock band in London, and the big bad all the way back from The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet reappears in Utopia Avenue. It's all tied together, and it's done so beautifully. The character work is unbelievable. The prose is out of this world, and it absolutely should be picked up by everyone that loves the horror genre, even though it's not on the shelves that we are standing in front of most of the time when we go into the bookstores that we go into. But please, please, shoulder your way past those shelf Nazis and check it out. So there you go, guys. 10 series from trilogies all the way up to 24 books, I believe, that are longer form, well worth your time in the horror genre. I hope you check any of them out. If you do, let me know. Let me know what you think. I love comments. I like to respond right away. I like the dialogue to feel like it's going back and forth. So as the quickest I can respond to you guys, I absolutely will. Let me know your favorite long form series in the horror genre. I would love to add to my TBR. It's been such a fun ride here on BookTube doing that with all of you. If you're checking me out again, back around, or this is your first time and you really dig what we do here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us grow the channel and everything we're trying to pull off here. So thank you so much again for spending the time with me here on Talking Story. And my name has been, no, it's not has been, it still is. My name is John Minton. Thank you so much.